Why I still use a Xbox 360 regularly in 2025. There are many reasons that I still use this legendary console to this day, and I'm going to be honest, I think one of the biggest reasons I still use it is nostalgia. I had a 360 growing up, it's my childhood console, I love the 360, so yeah, I do think ultimately nostalgia is the biggest factor in me still using a 360, but there are many other reasons as well. Another reason is affordability. The console itself, it's pretty cheap. Last I checked, I have an Xbox 360e model, 250 gigabyte. Last I checked, that exact model was in I don't know, the $120, the $150 range versus like an Xbox Series X, which is like what, $500 or $600, something like that. PS5 also much pricier. Nintendo Switch, I guess the Nintendo Switch 2, which is coming up, also a pricier console. So the Xbox 360, the console itself is significantly cheaper than new consoles, even used new consoles. I think I saw a Series X used for like $400. So the 360 console itself is a lot cheaper. And also, games on the Xbox 360, very, very affordable most of the time. From what I've observed, the vast bulk of 360 games are generally $20 or less, especially if you don't mind getting a loose disc-only copy, versus, like modern games coming out, they're like, what, $50, $60, $70, $80 now? And again, $20 versus $60, $70, $80. $20 is definitely a lot less. And while obviously there are exceptions, there are very expensive 360 games as well. From what I've observed, the vast bulk of them are generally $20 or less, and you can get a lot of great games on the 360 with a $20 bill. For example, I'm currently playing Tekken Tag Tournament 2. I got a complete copy of that game for like $12. I recently beat Monster Jam Path of Destruction. Very great game. I think I paid like $18 for that. I recently beat Connect Joyride. I believe I paid $10 for that. And while yes, I am aware that there are like indie and budget games coming out these days, that are like $5 or less. Or, there are games going on sale, where like newer games are like under $10 if you feel like waiting for a sale. But I'm just trying to look at things as a whole, if that makes sense. And I think as a whole, the 360, it's a lot more affordable to get games for versus newer consoles. And probably one of the next reasons that I still use a 360, which is sort of linked to the nostalgia factor, is I just feel comfortable on the 360. I feel right at home. I have a lot of experience on the 360. It just feels right to me. Versus whenever I bought an Xbox One a couple years ago, which I later ended up selling before a big move, I was somewhat taken aback at first. I was like, whoa, this is a lot of new stuff. I'm gonna have to learn all this. Versus on a 360, I boot it up, I know exactly what to do, I just feel right at home on the 360, if that makes sense. Another huge reason I still use the 360 over newer consoles in 2025 is ownership of games. For, a lot of newer games, like for Xbox, I'm not sure about PlayStation, but definitely for Xbox, if you go and you buy a disc, chances are you are not buying an actual game. You're just buying an access code, and then you have to download something to access the game. Now, of course, there are exceptions, like the Grinch game that came out a couple years ago. I remember buying that, and it was 100% on disc. So some newer games are 100% on disc, but a lot of them, you go and buy a disc, and it's basically just an access code. And once the online services for, say, the Xbox One goes down, if you bought an Xbox One game on disc and you go to put it into your console, you might not be able to play it in the future. Or the same thing goes for the Series X. If the servers someday shut down and you have a Xbox Series X game you go to put in that console, well, if you have to install it and the servers are down, well, you can't install it, so you can't access it. Versus on the 360, almost every single game released on the 360, with one exception that I'm aware of, was 100% on disc. Now, that being said, there were some games that required an installation from a second disc, but you owned everything. You owned everything physically. And again, I'm only aware of one game on the Xbox 360 that ever required a download to be played, and that was Black Ops 3. Why they decided to do that, I don't know. Although we all know that the Xbox 360 version of Black Ops 3 was an interesting experience, to say the least. But other than Black Ops 3, on the Xbox 360, if you have a disc, you can just put it in your console and you can play it right away. Versus, nowadays you have to install like every single game on an Xbox One. Even if the game is 100% off on the disc, you still have to install it. And while you could install any game, well, almost any game on the 360, it was optional. If you just wanted to just pop in the disc and go play, you could do that. Now, obviously, if you wanted to install it, if you wanted to install it so that, I don't know, the game would have quicker loading times, there would be a lesser chance of lag, you could install it. But it was largely an option. Although, like I said earlier, there were a few games where you had to use an installation disc, but most 360 games, you could just pop it right in, and you could play it just like that. And on the topic of having to install a game, even if you have the disc, some people, like myself, have limited Wi-Fi plans. So I cannot reasonably go installing a 250 gigabyte game because I have a limited Wi-Fi plan. I don't have unlimited Wi-Fi. So for me, if I was shopping for games and I saw that I was going to have to download 100 gigabytes, 200 gigabytes, 250 gigabytes of data in order to play the game, that would be an instant no for me. Because again, limited Wi-Fi plan. Or the place I lived before I lived where I am now. The Wi-Fi there was really spotty, and I would sometimes have to wait over a day in order to play a game on my Xbox One. I remember one time I was trying to play a really big game, and I had to wait like 2.5 days for that game to install, even though I had the disc. Versus on a 360, you put the disc in, you're good to go. Another reason that I prefer the Xbox 360, that I still use it, is there's not like generative AI on there. I hope this isn't true, but I think I read somewhere that like new Xbox consoles have some sort of like AI module in them, some sort of AI model in them that learns off of like what you do on the console. So basically Microsoft is watching literally your every move on new Xbox consoles. I could be wrong there. I hope I'm wrong, but I know that is definitely not present on the 360. Another thing is that there was way less politics on the Xbox 360 in that generation. I mean, so many things that came out on the Xbox 360 console probably wouldn't be allowed to fly today, over censorship or just politics in general in gaming. Like the example Dustborn. That game was a tremendous flop from what I understand, and it was admittedly propaganda. I think it was the developer, I don't remember, but someone who worked on it was like, yeah, this is literally a political propaganda game. Or looking at the company Sweet Baby Inc., whose job is to literally inject leftist politics into games. Now, I'm not trying to make this a political video, but I am going to say that I do not think politics belong in gaming. I think gaming it should be for fun. I think it's kind of like a form of escapism, if you will, kind of just take a break from the real world. And when you go to boot up a game and there are real world issues in that game, it's kind of like, are you kidding me? So even if there are politics that I agree with, I just don't think politics should be in gaming, if that makes sense. Now, there are some downsides to using the 360 in 2025. For example, the 360 store was sadly shut down last year. That sucks. And oftentimes multiplayer lobbies are pretty empty, but thankfully I am mostly a single player guy, so that hasn't had too big of an effect on me personally. And there are, just various little things here and there that just just various little reasons here or there that just further add to me using the 360, like Xbox 360 avatars. I believe Xbox or next gen avatars were recently shut down, if I'm not mistaken. You know, I think the Xbox 360 avatars are really cool. You know, it's one of the reasons I want to use the consoles because, you know, just seeing your avatar or seeing your avatar in some games, that's just such a cool little feature. I personally think that the 360 had some really cool themes, and I happened to grab a decent sized handful of themes before the 360 store closed. And I'm kind of running out of steam here, and I'm running out of things to talk about also, so I guess that's where I'm going to end the video. And yeah, why use the Xbox 360 in 2025? In my personal opinion, it's the best console of all time, but if you disagree, hey, that's totally cool. And tell me down in the comments what you thought of this video. You know, do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? It's totally okay to disagree. And thanks for watching. I hope everyone has a great day. Always remember that Jesus loves you all very much. Take it easy, and peace.